So we are pleased to have Denise Rexroad with Ways to Well on our call tonight. So Denise, I think it was probably about 2-ish years ago where I first met you, and you may or may not know this, but my brother Brandon, who is in Houston, Brandon owns a couple of businesses, Cutthroat barber shops, and an awesome gym called the Steel Mill over in the Heights. Somehow he met the owner of Ways to Well, Brigham, and he got hooked up with you, Denise. And so one day he called me and says, "Hey, man, I want to send you something. I got some blood work done, and I just want you to look at it just to get your thoughts." Yeah, okay, man, it's what I do. Send it on, Brandon. And he did via email, and I opened it up, and I was like, "Holy cow!" It's like, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen, man. This was like 60 pages of just pure protein. I was interested. I read, I think, every line item on the report, and I've never said that about anything, a whole lot of, stuff coming out of sort of the medical environment. So it was the best I had ever seen. So I went and signed up. Denise, that's when I met you. And I quickly realized you guys were a different model. You're absolutely not sick here. There you go. She's got a pit bull, by the way. So no sick care. This is true healthcare. I almost hate to say healthcare because it's almost an improperly used word. But Denise and I we talk a lot about optimization, right? So that's sort of a little bit of the backstory. So I've worked with her personally. Raise your hand, guys, if you're working with Denise right now. Yeah, so there you go. And Perry's about to, so he's halfway got his hand raised. So Denise, I don't, not to embarrass you, but I've been to a lot of doctors, and you're the best healthcare provider that I've ever worked with, and so I'm grateful to have you on to help educate all of us.
Well, thank you. I have to apologize. I have a very protective pit bull. Any little sound, he's like, so he didn't listen. He wasn't paying attention to anybody around, but I guess a different sound. He's like, so I had to go put him away. But I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for your kind words. And I was excited to see some familiar faces. So I am not a doctor. I'm a nurse practitioner, but I am special. My specialization is healthcare optimization or health optimization. I look at specifically the difference between normal versus optimal. When you go to the doctor, no one goes to the doctor because they're well and they want to be more well. They go to the doctor when they're sick or something's wrong. And there was a missing part of healthcare that says, well, if you're okay in coasting or okay in normal, how can you be better? How can you be optimal? And one of the things that Jody talks about is how to be a complete person, the whole person. And I look at it, you guys call it all the F's. I call it the holistic approach. I want all aspects of life optimized, and sometimes that includes nutrition, sometimes it's hormones, and a lot of times it is over 35 and the stresses of life. It just becomes taxing on your endocrine system, or you're not getting enough sleep. So you reach for caffeine or sugar to get through the day, and then before you know it, you're in a metabolic storm of I don't feel good. So, and maybe not feel good, but just not feel your best. So I get to optimize your health, and I just absolutely love what I do. I've actually never talked to a group of people this big before, so I'm not I like the one-on-one. So I'm trying to capture everybody's try to look at the group here, but
You're doing well. Just look and talk to Brian Palmer.
Familiar face there. No, but specifically when I look at blood work, I look at my complete panel has 16 blood tests in it. And so I look for things that when you go to the primary care doctor, they look at your cholesterol level, a CBC, a metabolic panel, and a TSH, and that's it. If they check your testosterone, they're going to check a total testosterone. And if it's above 250, it can be 252. This happened today. 252. Sorry, I can't do anything for you. You are now within the normal range. And I give you this visual because it encompasses the entire population. You're now within the normal range. Good luck. When a low testosterone is untreated for a long period of time, or even early in age, you can develop metabolic syndrome. Your blood sugar begins to elevate, your cholesterol begins to elevate, your DHEA begins to drop. Things shift. Then some people develop the dad bod, or your metabolic changes in your abdomen, or just the general fatigue that goes with that. So there's several things that change, and it accelerates the aging process. And then going back to not being fully optimized, you feel disconnected. You feel disconnected in your relationships, at work. You're not as, connected and as, strong mentally as you had been in the past. So it's just kind of a snowball trickle down effect. But I would, because I have Jody's permission and I have Tay's permission too, I'm going to show you 2 different lab tests. And I picked Tay's because Tay is, he's works with Waste to Well, and he said, yeah, absolutely, share it. And I think it's funny because I had him pretty well dialed in, and then he partied for the Baylor game and had his labs done the next day. So I thought it was kind of funny. He was like, don't show those results. I'm like, no, this is exactly what happened. I'm going to show these. So yeah. I'm going to do a share.
Denise, from a privacy standpoint, you absolutely have my permission. And in fact, I welcome it. And all of these men, I want them to see mine. So no worries there.
Perfect. Thank you. So when I meet with you for the first time, I always I call this my blue bubble screen, because I'm looking specifically at the difference between the normal range would be basically from this line to this line. Optimal range is right here in the middle. So this is what I call goals: pre-disease, pre-problem, have your body running like a well-oiled machine. When glucose is sitting slightly above optimal, a couple of things are happening. You're still not digesting dinner from the night before, or you can be burning off some fat from your liver. It's called gluconeogenesis. So I look for other things that could be causing that. When someone's lean and not struggling with metabolism, I don't get too worried about it. I consider it a fat burn. I also look at kidney function. Again, specifically looking at the difference between normal versus optimal. So when I see something that's above optimal, I think hydration status. How much water are you drinking? How are you training? And how are you recovering in between exercises? So if you train hard, you exercise a lot, you don't give your body a chance to break and rest, you're going to build up a little BUN. That stands for blood urea nitrogen. Your creatinine's going to creep up a little bit. Jody was a little bit dehydrated when he had his blood test drawn. His glomerular filtration rate's a little bit slow. So I would address hydration. How much water are you drinking? Goal is about half of your body weight in ounces of water throughout the day. So you can set a goal, if you're 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water, try to capture that throughout the day. Caffeine plays a role in this. And I always ask when I meet you for the first time, how much caffeine are you drinking? Because that gives me an idea of your energy status. So when somebody tells me I have to drink a pot of coffee to get through the day, I'm going through hydration, and why is your energy so low? What are we going to do to help improve your energy? Then I check electrolytes, and these were all absolutely stellar and fantastic. So his dehydration was acute, not chronic. It just happened to be probably early that morning, or hadn't had anything to eat that day, or on a fast. But he's able to extrapolate his sodium, potassium, chloride from his diet. Carbon dioxide was perfect. The anion gap, I look at it in 3 ways. This is a reflection of the metabolism, and this is what I call goals. This is telling me that the collective average metabolically, he's in a good place. If it begins to shift, something's off. Blood sugar's creeping up. He's staying too dehydrated, or something cholesterol-wise has shifted, and I pay attention to that. It's also a reflection of your acid-base balance. If it's shifting to a little bit of acidosis and that blood sugar is staying high for too long, you can hold that. I have some water retention, or systemic inflammation is another term for that. So it helps me tailor what I need to address on that side. Protein's a little bit low, and this is important. I check protein. I typically check globulin, and part of the reason why I wanted to use Tay's as well is because Jody's didn't quite have all the things that I would normally check. But protein and globulin are, your total protein is a representation of the total amount of how much volume you're getting, how you're breaking it down, and how you're receiving your amino acids. So the reason why I check globulin is because that tells me the variation of your amino acids in your general gut health. How are you absorbing? How are you breaking it down? If your globulin is very high, there's possibly a gut dysbiosis, like an overgrowth of bacteria or something that's you're just not absorbing very well. I catch things like, like I call it dysbiosis. It's just an imbalance of the good to bad bacteria ratio, or celiac disease, or even Crohn's disease. I can catch some early changes on that side. Total protein is 6.6 with albumin here. He just hadn't had anything to eat yet. He was on a longer fast. So this is a storybook for me. Not problematic. I already know you, so we're in a good place on that side. But if it was chronically low or the globulin was low, we would increase dietary proteins or include digestive enzymes to help improve digestion and breakdown. And the other thing, as we age, our digestive enzymes are a little slower. We don't produce as much. Or if we train hard, have a lot of stress, it changes the pH in our stomach. And so I see that a lot with high-level athletes and people that have high-stress jobs. the pH creeps up, so you don't digest your food as well, so you don't absorb your protein as well. We definitely check calcium. I'm going to pull Taze over because I wanted to show you what the albumin would look like. And again, he also gave me permission on this side. I'm just going to swing his over for just a second. His albumin and globulin, like I said, he partied the night before. Kind of lost a little bit of it, but the globulin, and then I look at the ratio compared to the total. So that's important. I also check calcium and magnesium. Magnesium is one of what I call the main ingredients that you need to make testosterone. I call the bake a cake theory. I have a whole bunch of random analogies that I use, but if you're going to bake a cake, you have to have ingredients, to have some flour, sugar, eggs, milk, and butter. You also have to have an oven to bake it in. That's what I call it, sleep. Magnesium and zinc are essential. If you're not getting enough of it, you don't sleep as deep. If you don't sleep as deep, you don't repair, you don't make enough DHEA. And if you don't have those ingredients, you don't make and utilize your testosterone. So that's something to consider. Let me check liver enzymes. Your AST, I jokingly call this alcohol, statins, and tequila. Basically what your body's ingesting, what you ingest and your liver has to filter out. Your ALT, this is if you have a virus or anything that's internal that your liver has to filter out on that side. When they're both elevated, it's exercise. You lifted some weights and you had a little skeletal muscle damage and have some spillover. It's absolutely okay. We check these because your liver, I call it the second largest detoxing organ in your body. Your skin is your first, liver is your second. If it's effectively removing all of your toxins, you have less chance of buildup and less chance of systemic inflammation that goes with that. It's Billy Rubin.
Denise, for years and years and years, in fact, I would argue today, there's a lot of conventional doctors that still don't know that AST and ALT can be impacted, can be elevated from a heavy leg day, for example. Mm-hmm. And I learned that the hard way when I was in my 20s. So an elevation in that with a false positive $2 freaking test for a Hep C, I got some really bad news from a doctor, and it turned out to not be true. But that was a huge learning for me. Don't just trust the first thing that the first doctor, something that the first doctor tells you. Educate yourself, go get a second, third opinion, really seek to know. So this AST, ALT reminded me of that. It took me years to finally find it in a book that, torn down muscles like heavy leg day or back training can elevate those. Acute. The
CrossFitters that do that particular workout, there's one that they do to honor a fallen soldier every year. I just went blank on the Murph. Yes. I had like 12 people after the Murph, and their liver enzymes were off the charts. And I asked, I was like, did you happen to exercise? And all of them said, oh yeah, we did the Murph, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I'm like, well, okay, that's what it is. Because the last time your liver enzymes were fine, we'll keep hydrating. And, next time it was absolutely fine a few weeks later or however long later to the next test.
That workout put my son in the hospital for 6 days last year.
Oh, that's bad. That's dangerous.
Yeah,
Yep.
a rhabdo,
Yeah.
That's right.
too
Yeah.
much breakdown.
But, and guys, keep this in mind. Like for life insurance, they don't care how healthy you are. They don't care that Brooke has a 32-inch waist and a good chest, right? They're just looking at freaking numbers. They're right, and so it's not a bad idea to hydrate, take a few days off if you're doing heavy, intense training and whatnot, just to get the freaking life insurance the way that you want it.
Or some milk thistle. We have a little cheat.
Yeah, thanks. So I weigh 190 pounds. I'm 5'10". I weigh 190, and they considered me heavy, like overweight. And they gave me
you're almost obese with your BMI. Yeah, me too.
Like they never saw me. They just asked for the metrics, and I gave it to them, and they raised my premium.
Yeah, they're knuckleheads. Welcome to sick care.
Yep. No, I can go on a 2-hour tirade about that part. Bilirubin, this is a reflection of the amount of bile that's released to digest your fats. You were still digesting dinner the night before. That's.
So speak to that for a second. If a guy goes out in Louisiana and blows out, fried oysters and beer and gets a blood test the next day, what do you expect to see? Cholesterol, triglycerides. What do you expect to see blown out?
Bilirubin, triglycerides, not so much the low density cholesterol, but I'll see the insulin spike up quite a bit, trying to figure out what to do with all this added fat. But yeah, you'll see that in the bilirubin quite a bit because you're still actively trying to break it down. So in a response to that is to send out more bilirubin, to send out more digestive enzymes to finish breaking it out.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, right? Blood pressure as well. Like, okay, you've never had high blood pressure, right? Or I'll just speak I statements. I've never had high blood pressure. And so maybe I did too much caffeine, or maybe I'm nervous about something or whatever it may be. If I had one high blood pressure reading, I'm not jumping on medication. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna not ignore it, but I'm gonna look into it. But you'll see my free test here in a little while, and Denise and I are convinced it's a lab error, right? So again, I'm probably harping too much on a point, but medical folks make mistakes big time. And so something to think about.
That, and they would look at that and say, well, maybe you have a gallbladder problem. And I would say, what'd you have for dinner the night before? Listen to your patient. And I'm not just looking at the metrics. I'm looking at, what was Jody doing? Did you celebrate the Baylor game? Were you eating the, whatever the night before? And 9 times out of 10, that's the answer. And sometimes I'll get when we do the follow-up visit, okay, I really wasn't good the whole week because we had this event and I was on vacation. Like, okay, great. Did you enjoy vacation? Great. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do from now on. I'm not taking testosterone away. And that's the thing about the liver enzymes. If they pop up, the urologist, they're required to take your testosterone away. That hurts my heart because that's not the cause. That's not the issue. You were a little bit dehydrated and you had trained. So all the other things that are considerations were just wiped out because you're on testosterone. And that you have to listen to your patient. You have to listen to what they were doing. What were you eating? Or how often do you train? How often do you sleep? You have to get all the details on that side.
So like AST and ALT, what's like actual high, and how much those numbers move daily and weekly?
Well, the AST and ALT will move literally within hours after an exercise, but it takes about 24 to 48 hours for you to filter it back out. So it's based on how much cell damage or how bad leg day was. So I usually just say hydrate. If you know you're going to have blood work done, especially for like a life insurance or your PCP, hydrate.
Let's just say those numbers are both 3 digits.
Then both numbers are 3 digits all the time?
Yeah.
How often have you tested it?
Every few months.
So it could be a couple things, a chronic virus that you're fighting off. It could be some fatty liver. That's probably the bigger culprit. That's if you have some belly fat, you begin to store it on the liver. Mm-hmm. Milk thistle and alpha lipoic acid help to flush out the liver. I call it cleaning out the filter. If there's any fat that's stored there, that's what I use metformin for. Metformin, that's one of my favorites. It has lots of outside qualities for what it's known for. But Yeah, I'm happy to take a deep dive into figuring out what's going on with yours specifically.
Okay.
You know, cholesterol, when you go to the primary care doctor, they get all excited about cholesterol. And I celebrate, I would call this cholesterol a little too low. You got to have some more fats. You need fat to feed your brain. You need fat for testosterone. You need fat for cell repair and recovery. I don't ever use cholesterol lowering medications like statins. And that, I give the analogy of being on a boat. And if the boat has a leak, I plug the leak. I don't just give you a bucket. I'm not trying to just dump it out. And that's kind of how I view cholesterol, just dumps everything out, but it also lowers your ability to produce testosterone. And so when I see a cholesterol like this, I just know it's a pristine diet, and he's done a fantastic job. And every other day he gets it right. His high density cholesterol is a little bit low, so we got to pull in some good fats. But his low density cholesterol, or the bad cholesterol, is actually fantastic, which makes his ratio fantastic. So it's the difference between the good and bad, and how to take it a step further. The good cholesterol binds to the bad cholesterol and processes it out through the liver. So you'll have a clean out on that side.
Hey, Denise, I don't know if I ever told you this, but like you, I'm a big fan of Official, and I take 2 grams a day, AM and PM, 1 gram. But what I don't think I've ever told you is I met with a nutritionist in Houston, a guy called Steve Stevies. And so I like what Fish Oil does, for plaque, triglycerides, cholesterol, et cetera. But I really like Fish Oil for the blood thinning effect, the mild blood thinning effect. Mm-hmm. So I met with Steve Stevies, and I remember looking at my blood under a microscope. And I was like, okay, it's moving a bit, mobility, modality, whatever. And then he had me step out and better hydrate, because I'm coming off the street. So you know me, I'm not fully hydrated, but give me a coffee, I'm happy, right? So and I took some Fish Oil, and I went back in, and he poked my finger again, and we looked at my blood. And I honestly don't remember if it was 30 minutes or an hour that went by, but the blood I saw post Fish Oil and hydration, game changing. That blood was mobile. It was moving. It was not as viscous.
Yeah.
And from there on out, I've been a big fan of Fish Oil.
That and the oxygen carrying capabilities. If the cells move freely, they exchange oxygen better, so you recover better. You have, if you're active and exercising, then your recovery is going to be faster too.
That's right. Good Fish Oil, not the bad stuff that you belch up. That's rancid. That's no good. Good Fish Oil. Life extension.
The krill oil.
Krill oil.
Now this round they did just the total testosterone. I'm going to scroll down and show you this. This is what he's talking about. The prior testosterone they did. Let me find it on here. The last one that they did, his free, they coded it as 32.9 and 77.8. Now, the optimal range for testosterone on this chart is 700 to 900. The optimal range for the free testosterone starts at 150. And I say starts at 150 because if you're 150, and if it's less than 150, you've got my attention. If it's more than 150, how are you feeling? Did we get there? Because I feel like that's kind of the threshold. We have to cross the threshold, and then how are you feeling after that? So I don't put everyone in a testosterone box. If your testosterone comes back and it's 2283, how are you feeling? How's everything doing? How are you working out? All the things that go with that. But I also look at the SHBG. I look at the SHB. These are the cups or the receptors that carry your testosterone. If you have a significant amount of available receptors, you have a good exchange of your testosterone. If these numbers are being suppressed, well, the receptors are all filled up, and you're less likely to exchange them. You're less likely to use what you have. So you have quite a bit more available free. The easiest answer to that is just a little oversaturation. You don't need as much, but if you're feeling good, not having a problem, not having any side effects, it's clearly keeping your cholesterol in a good place, blood sugar and insulin are a good place. Hemoglobin hematocrit. Yes.
Yeah. Can I say a thing about the total and free?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you guys see my number there, 1212. Can you point to it, Denise?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So 1212. That's total. What's the 32.9, Denise? Is that August 7th or March 18th?
That was August 7th. last year.
Okay, so that's the one we think is incorrect, right?
Yeah, I think they forgot a decimal, or they moved the decimal a little too soon.
Okay,
I think it's supposed to be 329.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got to be off by a
Yeah,
factor.
yeah, we think that's off, but all right, so when I'm talking to men, right, and so we want to know both total and free. So in my mind, total is like, okay, how much money do you have in your bank account? And so you can have 100,000 in your bank account, but if you can only get 2,000 out a month, you ain't living very comfortably. That how much you can get, that 2,000 a month, is kind of like you're free. It's what's going to produce the results. And what's binding that up is what she talked about down here, about 5 down, SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. I've seen men get into tailspins and try to lower that and unbind it and just drive themselves crazy. And Denise can tell you that you don't necessarily want to knock out that. You don't necessarily want to knock out any hormone, because they're all there for a reason. And that we could get off on a tangent with estradiol, right, Denise? So bottom line is that SHBG is binding up in a lot of men some of that total. So if they just give you a number like, hey, I'm 500, but I feel like crap. Okay, Denise and I are kind of thinking, what's going on with that SHBG? How much of that is bound up?
Yep.
Would you agree?
I agree. I look at it like, if you've ever gone to the firing range, or let's pretend we're all going to the firing range, and you unload 1,212 bullets into that target, and I run up to the target and go, whoa, Jody, look how much ammo you have. You're going to go, no, dummy, that's not ammo. That's spent. That's used. Let me take you to my green ammo box. I've got 300 bullets left, or I've got 500 bullets. That's what I'm looking for. How much do you have left for what you're using? Are you getting enough to maintain that spending, and maintain those bullets going out? And I call the free testosterone, I call this bullet in the air and bullet in the chamber. I want to make sure you're able to fire off exactly what you need and there's enough there for you. When you go to the primary care doctor, they look at this number. And again, if it's above 250, 252, nothing I can do for you. They don't look at the free and the bioavailable.
Yeah, Denise, we should probably mention, so I think clearly you and I agree, normal is not where we want to be, because we're promoters of optimal. But we should probably mention normal is representative of a fat, obese, sick population.
Mhm.
And normal has been lowered throughout the years, throughout the decades. So normal 10 years ago on the major labs, they were higher numbers than they are today. And it was the same 10 years before that.
About every 5 years, they get lowered each time. So when I have a 55-year-old that tells me I don't feel my best until my testosterone is 1,600, I go, okay, that's probably where you should be. And I get wait, you're not going to argue with me? Well, no, that's probably what your baseline was. Just because they moved your target doesn't mean that this is where you have to move to that target. Like, this is where you should be.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Denise, one of the things I struggle with, and I think I've got my own opinion on it now, is I've had men ask me, what's the problem with having total and free test too high? And I come back to, I truly believe you can override some necessities. I think that with high T, you can feel like you don't need the deep or the restorative sleep, but more importantly, I think that it can ultimately like raise anxiety in men. What are your thoughts? Too high?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of look at it like a pendulum. Too low, you can have symptoms. Too high, you can have symptoms. And that's why every time I meet with someone, how are you feeling? And I've had people come back and they're mid-range, they're feeling great. And they want to go up a little bit because more is better. Okay, let's try it and see how you're feeling. Whoops, I have some symptoms now. Okay, let's go right back down. And that's your sweet spot. That's where you should be. The whole point of it is tailoring to what you need instead of what the box, trying to keep you in a box.
Yeah, good point.
So, and the risk of your testosterone being too high or staying too high too long, there's a theory out. It's being proved right now. It's called testosterone resistance theory, kind of like insulin resistance. It's requiring too much to keep those levels optimal. We want to be in that happy spot. So these are, I'm not seeing this in my patients because I'm not dosing like that, but these are the bodybuilders that they've been on 300 or 500 milligrams, and
Yeah.
you just need more and more and more and more and more. Well, there's receptors, the SHBG it's just been so tanked. There's nothing to exchange it with. So they still feel terrible, even though their labs say their testosterone is elevated. And so, yeah, we have to make some changes on that side.
Yeah,
That's
we
for sure.
we back off, throw some HCG at it, maybe some peptides, give them receptors a break, right?
Yeah. Growth hormone is just get things going again. So
Absolutely. Love it.
heal thyself.
Hey,
No.
Denise, this estradiol, I don't trust this number 28. It's Ochsner is taking over Louisiana. They're like Kelsey Siebold and it's sick here. They didn't do a sensitive assay, so I don't know how much, I don't put much trust in this number 28.
I actually like the number 38 and 48
I do too.
better,
I do too.
especially when your testosterone sits, 12, 1300. And I'm going to be real direct with this statement. And I always get a little bit of a reaction when I say this, but when you were 14 years old and your testosterone was 1400, you had morning erections every day. You could have sex and 15 minutes later have sex again. You could play basketball for 12 hours, go on 2.5 hours of sleep and play basketball for 12 hours again. So these 14, 15-year-old boys that have these amazing testosterone levels, what's missing that we're doing now that's making it off? Well, everybody that in the cookie cutter system, you get testosterone and HCG and an estrogen blocker. Well, we're not blocking estrogen in a healthy 14-year-old. Why would we do it? If I'm trying to optimize you and trying to get you to the pre-disease, pre-problem, running like a well-oiled machine like they are, I'm not going to block your estrogen. Estrogen does a lot of wonderful things. It helps protect your joint fluid. It helps protect your cardiovascular system. It helps protect your erection quality. It decreases visceral body fat. It actually helps protect against prostate cancer too. So I celebrate as testosterone increases, estradiol should increase as well. So I celebrate when they match. You're doing what you're supposed to do. That's a healthy response. And so I have several patients that I've had to take off of estrogen blockers, and they've had a bit of a transition because they've been in a system where you take your testosterone, your HCG, and your estrogen blocker because that's what you're told to do, and you're still having symptoms. I don't feel my best. I have some brain fog. Things aren't working the way it should. We taper off of the estrogen blocker, and it's a remarkable improvement.
Yeah, Denise, so you helped me get off, and sort of my story is if I can get off, anybody can get off. I was scared to come off. So, I mean, I had been blocking estrogen with a low dose Arimidex, and I could take a high dose and it did not kill me. It did not kill my estrogen at all. I've crashed estrogen, so I know what that looks and feels like, and that's not a fun place. It is recoverable. But I was on Androzole Arimidex for 10 years. And that all started with the cookie cutter approach, which is what Lipschultz, Dr. Larry Lipschultz, God bless him. He does a lot of great stuff for urologists, but he's still very old school like that. And man, I tell you what, I could look at testosterone and aromatize, or at least I thought I could. And by the way, when Arimidex first starts on men that started, typically they and I feel great. But after a while, it's just not needed. Lord only knows what damage it's causing. I heard you mention, like heart health, also bone health, brain, estradiol it's just critical. So after 10 years, I finally got off, and the way that I got, and I was scared to come off, to be honest with y'all. And I did it with calcium D-glucarate at 1,000 milligrams a night with magnesium, because I'm raising calcium. I want to raise magnesium as well. I don't want those two out of balance, and I'm a big fan of magnesium. And I did that, but probably more importantly, I pulled two levers. And as y'all know, when you pull two levers, you don't know which one worked. Maybe it was both. I did sub-Q, daily injections. And so Denise and I think that was probably the more effective of the two, just because it's more microdosing and daily and more sort of mimics what the body does. The body pulses testosterone. And so I don't like a once a week injection at all. I don't think it's ideal, 2 minimum. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, probably even better. But anyway, so for those that are thinking about blocking estrogen, reach out to me. Happy to talk to you. For those that are on an estrogen blocker, man, if I can come off, you can come off. By the way, I need to go get a DEXA at some point and just hope and pray that I didn't, cause any deterioration to my bones Unfortunately, I weightlift a lot, so that can offset a lot of that. But who knows? I love quantitative data, not just guessing. So I want to go get a DEXA at some point to check it out.
I got a
Absolutely.
question about the estradiol. Is there a ratio of what your estradiol should be based on your testosterone level?
Not necessarily, because the same rules apply. I don't necessarily put you in a box. So I have, if your total testosterone sits at 1,000 and your estradiol sits at 40, great. If your total testosterone sits at 1,200 and your estradiol sits, at 89 or 90, okay, well, what's shifted? What's going on? That's when I'm looking at your blood sugar and your insulin.
Okay.
The blood sugar and the insulin will dictate how rapidly you convert that testosterone over to estradiol. So that's telling me that something is metabolically off. The other thing I consider is your thyroid function. Thyroid is responsible for about 200 metabolic functions throughout your body. So if something is off and aromatizing that quickly, I want to know why.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a particular patient he did not feel his best until his total testosterone was 2,200.
Ooh,
And I was like, it's a little higher than what, but his SHBG stayed at 45, so a little bit higher. His estradiol was 89, and he said, "You know what? I'm on top of the world. Don't touch it." I was like, "Absolutely." He's a retired pro athlete, and I was like, "That's probably his baseline." None of his SHBG was fine. It was actually still a little bit high, like he could use some more, and he had never used anything in the past. So he said he's as happy as he can be right now, and it's been, I don't know, it's almost 2.5, 3 years, and each time he's like, "Don't touch it." Absolutely, same dose. I won't touch it. So
Okay. Thank you.
hey, Denise, I don't. It may not be on here, but I think you and I love A1C. So can you speak to that for a second?
yeah, the hemoglobin A1C, I have it on Taze here.
Thank you.
Let me scroll down, sorry. Hemoglobin A1C is a reflection of the excess amount of blood sugar. What you do with that sugar, the excess amount, basically how it oxidizes on the cell. That puts you at a greater risk for storage, specifically plaque storage. I look for carotid arteries, heart, liver, lungs, all the places where you could store that excess. If you're not using the sugar, it's going to be stored somewhere. Visceral belly fat, what we don't want it to happen is that it's stored on the plaque, or stored as plaque on the vessels. So A1C is an indicator of, do you get it right most of the time and use that blood sugar? So I'm using Taze as an example right now because his A1C is 4.8. He's nailing it. He partied really hard and had a lot to drink and kind of joked about having the Baylor game. So his insulin went up, his blood sugar went up a little bit. But every other day, the collective average, and this is based on the life of the red blood cell, which is about 90 to 120 days. So over the last 90 to 120 days, he's been nailing his blood sugar. Love it. He's using it. He's not oxidizing it. It's not sticking anywhere dangerous. That's what our goal is.
So one of the things I like for A1C is I like berberine, but I'm specifically taking metformin, which is a so-called drug, but that's pretty plant-based, and it's there's a handful of so-called drugs that I take, and metformin is one of them because I like it for optimization, and it's got my A1C down. I think I was like, I don't know, 4.9, 4.8, but my last is 4.7, and I'm sure about the 4.7 because I remember that one, which is optimal, which is fantastic. The other thing, Denise, what else do you like about metformin? I like it for gut health, and I love it for insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistant. It's kind of resetting those receptors in my mind.
It does. It makes your insulin more potent, so it's more effective at controlling your glucose. It helps with regulating the gut microbiome. It helps improve cell apoptosis, which is cell turnover and kicking out any cells that are aging too quickly. It has those, that's what I call the anti-aging benefit, but it's made from the French lilac. So even though it's a medication and requires a prescription, I use that term, it's still naturally derived. So
well said. And by the way, so for those that are looking into like peptides, there's an oral version that I've taken called MK677. So this is not the 101. I'm giving you the 202 or the 303, right? MK677. It's effective. I've measured my IGF, so it worked. but it's in my mind, it's nasty. It's crude. It raised my A1C. I don't remember how much, but it was significant. Denise, you and I had talked about it at one time, and the hunger pains are through the roof, plus the bloating and whatnot. So for a young man or woman, maybe, but for me, where I am, trying to optimize, I'm just no longer a real big fan of MK6. Any thoughts on that, Denise?
I agree. I have some patients that are just I'm not going to give myself an injection. And that's my only option for oral peptides to stimulate growth hormone. I have my little prop here. I use my little tiny needle. I'm like, I promise they're little bitty, but the injectable peptides are best. They do stimulate production of your own growth hormone. If you want to stimulate your own production, you never want to use real growth hormone that suppresses your production. So the difference in the MK677 is because it's oral and it's the way it acts systemically, you have a lot of fluid retention that happens. So that fluid retention and that growth that's being stimulated, it's telling your brain that you're starving and you're hungry and you're trying to grow those cells quickly. So the appetite is insatiable, but the water retention that goes with it is pretty significant. I don't use it frequently, but when I do use it, in time, it does level out a little bit. It's not quite severe. It's just getting through those first few months that are quite frustrating. But
Yeah, I agree. I've got a study that shows that 10 milligrams of MK is about 80% of effective as 20 milligrams, and that cuts down on a lot of the side effects, right? And then I would argue a person probably ought to consider metformin and watch carbs just to try to control that A1C, blood glucose a little bit.
Agreed. I do.
Question for you: for those that have used exogenous growth hormone for some length of time, are they bound? I don't know if you've seen this or not, but my question is: are those men and women bouncing back, or are they staying shut down for a while after using GH?
They're shut down for a while until we get a
Oh,
dog on board. Yeah.
Okay.
There's it's a slow process. I mean, when I say a while, it's like probably a 2-year.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Yep. Guys, we're talking beyond growth hormone, like peptides, and we can do a whole talk on peptides, but in my opinion, they are the future. And peptides, the ones we're talking about, are to naturally pulsate to have the body release natural growth hormone, which is a great thing. But there are other peptides that are healing tendons, ligaments, skin, etc. And I'm thinking like the copper peptides, but more so like BPC 157. That stuff's a miracle as far as I'm concerned, for knees, elbows, backs, etc. And some of that is oral. But Denise, I'm thinking with the Revive and you guys, it's probably an injectable, I'm guessing.
We have both. I use the oral for gut health. I mean, the oral will help with joint pain and inflammation, and I have that as an option for people who just absolutely won't inject themselves, and that's completely okay. It doesn't work as effectively as the injectable does, but I have both, and we call it the Wolverine peptide because
Yes.
that's what it's been nicknamed. So it's very effective.
Yes. And are you having them inject near the injury or sub-Q to systemically go throughout the body?
Just sub-Q systemically, and you have a positive effect. Unless I'm doing the injection and I'm putting it directly into the joint, and I have a little side gig that I do. I'll put some directly into the joint, but I'm also using stem cells, things like that. But otherwise, you have a full systemic effect.
Beautiful. I'm almost convinced BPC is so wonderful that anyone over 40 ought to be using it, cycling it a couple of times at some point.
Yeah.
Once, twice, 3 times a year. It's just wonderful.
Just reset, healing, recovery. If it's taking 3 or 4 days to recover after leg day, get some BPC on board. Take some after leg day. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hey, can you speak on that?
I have a
How
question.
often? You said
I'm sorry.
How often to take the PCP 157?
Well, if you're just using it for their healing and just joint pain and systemic recovery, I use it daily, 0.2 milliliters, so 200 micrograms, every night. If you're using it for like recovery and you have an injury, I do a much higher dose for a shorter period of time. So
Okay.
it depends on what you're using it for.
Denise, I'm almost, in my opinion, I'm liking BPC better than TB500. Where are you at?
You know, they don't work the same.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like BPC helps the repair. It stimulates it. I kind of look at it like the honeycomb.
Yeah.
And the thymosin, it speeds the process of healing, but it doesn't initiate healing. And that's the difference. They work a little differently on that. So that's what I'm finding. And so, you know, we use the thymosin just a couple of days a week because of the half-life. It's a long-acting half-life. But when you use them together, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So
guys, if you're hopping around with a knee injury or shoulder injury, look, I don't know if you're open to this or not, but you don't have to go through the natural 11 months hoping your body heals and repairs. I mean, there's better ways. I've done this stuff and it's very effective. And so have some of you on the call. I'm looking at your faces, paying attention.
Joey, on that quick question, I guess I'm dealing with some sciatic pain. Is that, and as you're talking about this, I'm curious if this would be relevant for someone like that.
absolutely. What I was about to say was I started treating him in January, and he's fighting again. He's got a fight coming up. So he was gonna have to take the entire year off to nurse his injury, and he's not. He's gonna be fighting soon. So that's a huge deal for someone that's their livelihood. Now I was very aggressive with my dosing to help speed his process, and you really can't overdose BPC as far as overdose, but you reach the maximum effect. So he was doing 500 micrograms a day. Well, he did that for probably 6 weeks, and then using the thymosin in between. But he didn't have to have surgery. He's fighting again. He's made a tremendous recovery. So it's absolutely. So if your disc is compressed and you actually are spilling out your disc contents and touching the nerve, that's a little different. I can't reverse that type of damage. But if it's just swelling that's around it and putting pressure on the nerve and you're having some radicular pain around it, the BPC can take that pressure away. It will take the pressure off of the nerve and help healing. B vitamins are used as well, but yeah, absolutely. It's definitely worth a try before you go into surgery for sure.
Thank you. I'll reach out. Appreciate it.
Just send me a message. I'll send it over. That's one of the things I like. I always tell people, just send me a message. Let me know what's going on. Talk to me. I answer my emails. I answer my messages. I try to be connected to my patients because, especially if we've met and I've established a relationship and a plan for you, I want to help you see through. I want to see you through the process. I want to get through any of the major changes, even the minor changes. I get updates every now and then, and I absolutely love that. It helps guide me on what to do next. Let's see, we talked about the A1C, and then I didn't have the thyroid on Jody, so I wanted to go over what I check with the thyroid. When you go to the primary care doctor, they only check the TSH, and this can be misleading. This is the send more, tapping on the order. And if this falls within the normal range, there's no issue. Last time Tay and I met, his T4 was a little bit low and he was really struggling with energy. I put his free T3 a little bit higher. I didn't have this other lab. He had it from another place. But it was just a little over 3. Put it at 4. He's feeling it. He is feeling the significant improvement. That helps with triglycerides, that helps with energy. And I use the analogy, if your thyroid is like, if you're a 4-cylinder car driving in the mountains, you're going to get there, but there's a whole lot of on that engine. So if your thyroid is slow functioning, that's your metabolic conductor. That affects other hormones. That affects your insulin. It affects your triglycerides. It affects what you're doing with your testosterone. Testosterone and thyroid are like best friends. They like to modulate each other. If one is missing, then you're not going to have full support from the other. So I do like to check both and make sure that something is not missing. And again, goes back to the whole person. What is it? Nutrition? Is it hormonal? And when I check hormones, I literally mean the DHEA, the cortisol, the vitamin D, cholesterol, insulin, testosterone, estradiol. I want to look at all of it together. That's why I like to do my whole panel.
Hey Denise, when a guy jumps on testosterone for the first time, are you seeing changes in their thyroid numbers?
Yes, their thyroid is
Yeah.
improving.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like giving
And-
a few extra cylinders to that engine.
that's right. So testosterone is so vital, key, foundational for men, and with women, right? It's yeah. You're smiling. So tell us about that.
Oh,
And I don't want to go too deep into the women, but just real quick, if you would.
oh no, when we were talking earlier, I was like, yeah, that's my agenda. I want your wives because
Yeah,
if your partners are optimized too, then it makes life so much easier. It makes full optimization so much easier. And as as a mom, as a wife, as I work a lot of hours, I feel the pressure of all the things we have to do. And on this side of it, things that you guys might not notice. I have to feed the kids and the laundry and all the running things. So at the end of the day, when everything else is done, I might not have as much energy and as much time learning to prioritize, addressing anything that could be missing, like nutrition, sleep quality. After babies, after 35 and after babies, our sleep is just not optimal. So we wake up in a deficit every day. So, women, we're so delicate, we're so different. You guys are so easy to fix. Testosterone fixes so many things with women. It's the thyroid or the progesterone or, insulin resistance or a combination of all three. And the thing is, with women, it's different. It's not anything normally, it's not anything that's really glaringly obvious, like, oh, you have a thyroid problem and that's the cause for everything. It's many things that are just a little bit off. And those many things add up. And at the end of the day, they're tired at 2 p.m. So engagement, quality time together, finishing chores, all the things that something that gets sacrificed. Well, I don't want it to be a relationship. I don't want it to be that side of it. So that's why I was joking. I was like, I want the wives too. So we gotta get them optimized. I love when couples optimize together. That makes it fun. That makes it so much more fun.
well, it's huge, right? And we talk about that a lot with our men here. It's like, because we're optimizing, mind, body, and spirit, right? It's like cannot leave the women behind. We cannot leave them behind. And you know what? I preach it well, but when we look at the actual actions, I think there's still there's more work to be done. So you're dead on. And I know some of your success stories that you've shared with me, where you've gotten the letters and the notes from the wives. Simon's on the call. He shared a great story with us when Nelson came on. I mean, it's life-changing when we can, when the couple is optimized together, right?
Well, I have a good friend. I was telling you this story. I have a very good friend that I've known for a while, and he was struggling. He's active, he's healthy, he's optimized. His wife was not. And, just to, put it on a scale, she was like a 2. She was not participating in life, not participating in marriage. And he was like, I need your help. Help me help her. And we drug her kicking and screaming to get her labs done. It was a huge fight all the way through to get her labs done. Finally convinced her. I was like, we'll do it on a Sunday afternoon because she works. She didn't want to make time for this. And I was like, I will come to you. I will make time for you. We're going to go through your labs. And within 2 weeks and 3 days to be exact, I get a text message from her, and then I see him shortly afterwards, and he was like, "Thank you for giving me my wife back." And it was just 2.5 weeks. It made such a remarkable change in her sleep, her attitude, things that had not happened in quite a while. They're connected again. And he's like, it's been less than a year since she's been optimized, and he's like, she's a better mother. She says that I'm a better mother. I'm a better daughter. I'm a better spouse. I'm back. And it wasn't anything. She had been to 7 doctors, 7, maybe 8 doctors, and no one could find out what was wrong with her, why she felt terrible, because nothing was outside of the normal range. It was just a few things that were outside of the optimal range that no one was paying attention to. And that's what makes women a little more delicate. We have those few little clues, but they're not, with you guys, it's easy. Insulin resistance and testosterone. Everything else kind of falls in line. We're always complicated with everything. So.
That's all right. Well, you make me think of DHEA. right?
Yeah.
I remember taking, when I was 30, I followed Life Extension. I still do. I love those guys. It's what a great company, the research that comes out of them. But at 30, I started taking DHEA. And what I did not know at the time is that, DHEA at a certain amount, say greater than 50 milligrams, can convert to estrogen in men. Not that estrogen is all bad, but just good to know. Oh, and by the way, it tends to convert to testosterone in women, right? And so it's a sort of a cascading, right? You take one thing and you're changing these other things.
Well, that's important. I look at DHEA in men, well, clearly men and women. DHEA, it gets overlooked as an important consideration or an important ingredient. And what'll happen a lot of times is people will get on this cookie cutter testosterone, and this bothers me. I get worked up about this one. Cookie cutter testosterone, and their testosterone level comes back, and it's great, 900, 1,000. We work off the estrogen blocker, and then I get this message that something's still not right. For whatever reason, they're usually descriptive in their symptoms and their complaints. So let's check DHEA, and DHEA comes back half of what it should be. When DHEA is missing, you can have delayed pleasure center, delayed ejaculation, delayed response. That is an important ingredient, and it's often overlooked. So when there's a huge discrepancy and it's missing, symptoms can still be present, and people think, well, I just need more testosterone, and that's not the real problem. You have to have a better balance there. So with women, when we're missing our DHEA, we're not converting as much, just like you said, over to testosterone. We're also not converting as much over to progesterone. And progesterone with women, I don't know if you guys know this, but that also plays into our libido. And so it's not just physical for women. We have to have the emotional side of it. We want to feel connected, feel desired, feel desirable. And that if the progesterone is low or missing, that can absolutely affect libido. So that's, one of the other things we check with women. That yeah. So let's get your wives on board.
Yep, well said. Yeah.
Get your partners, get your your better halves, somebody else would say.
That's right. Anything else on here worthy of mention, Denise?
No, I covered the DHEA. I brought that one up because I finally got him into an optimal range. And the cortisol. I do check cortisol often.
Yeah.
Cortisol is your stress hormone. When you're stressed, you're having quite a bit of suppression on testosterone and DHEA. So you can be supplementing testosterone and your cortisol, your stress levels high, and having quite a bit of suppression in that DHEA, and become symptomatic. So I absolutely address cortisol when it's that high. I know why his cortisol is where it is. So we've already discussed that and made some changes. But I use ashwagandha. If it's affecting sleep, I'll use 5-HTP. I have quite a few, little valerian, or I have a few things that kind of help drive that cortisol level down to get good deep sleep. And I'm a huge supporter. Sleep is the essence of life. If you are getting a good night's sleep, a lot of things are corrected. If you are not sleeping, a lot of things are still left unoptimized. So that's the start of everything. If you're getting good sleep, everything else is easy to correct. But you also
and for those who aren't tracking sleep, we could do a whole nother episode of that. The beauty of the Aura ring that I wear to track sleep. But there's hacks, man. So if you're drinking wine or whiskey at night and think you're sleeping well, you're probably not, as measured by deep sleep. It's just very rare for that to happen with alcohol. Screen time is terrible. I know, because I measure this, and when I'm on the phone before bed, it kills not total sleep, deep sleep, right? So nature, sunshine, grounding, that all of that is medicine, right? That our provider gave us. So it's huge. Breathing, deep breathing.
You talked about grounding. I don't know if you guys have talked about it in your group, but I go outside, take your socks off, put your feet in the grass, connect to the earth. I know you guys do your outdoor thing, so I'm sure you have all had that conversation. But
yeah, we encourage the guys to actually wear flip flops on the weekend so that we can get bare feet, back on the dirt. Kind of my thought is, where technology is toxic or can be, nature is medicine. It's just amazing, and so yeah. Simon, is your hand up, brother?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Hey.
All right. So, hey, Denise, I've shared so many stories about you had some whiskey last night, and I know I was showing my Aura Ring data to Jody on the weekend, and I usually have my heart rate variability up in the 60 to 70 range. Last night, my average was 15 and my max was 17, and things were horrible. So I completely echo that. I don't drink often, but man, the Aura Ring proved to me why I don't drink often. My question is related to the ladies, and I've shared with this circle a number of times Laura's story. But one of the things I asked Nelson when he was on, but I'm curious from you. I know that given different times of the month, hormones in women can fluctuate, data can fluctuate, and he gave us kind of a sweet spot of what point in the cycle or what day in the cycle he thinks is best to get a baseline for women. Do you have a preference? If the lady's going to get labs, do you have a preference of, where they are? And the sweet spot target obviously may not be able to hit a specific day, but do you have a guide for that?
I only if we're trying to get pregnant. If I'm just looking at hormones, it doesn't matter when you get it done. I just need you to tell me where you were in your cycle, so then I know where I should put you. So, if someone tells me, well, I'm at day 15 and your progesterone is 0.5 or 1, it shouldn't be. It should be between 11 and 15. So that's a significant difference. If you're pretty close to it, we can guess within a day or two. But if you're that far off, then it's a big problem that you were never optimal to begin with. So I get to navigate through that. And yes, they do drop, but they don't drop that much. So I have women that come back and their estrogen is extremely low, and you should always have something. You should always have some progesterone. You should always have some testosterone. No matter where you are in your cycle, you're going to have these peaks and troughs, but they shouldn't be non-existent. And just as long as I know where you are in the month, where you are in your cycle, that helps me calculate and plan.
Hey, how about we switch? This is fantastic. How about we switch gears and go to Q&A? Are you okay with that, Denise?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Will you stop sharing?
Yes.
And then we can kind of see folks raising their hands or whatnot. So, hey, Brooke, what's up, man?
Hi, Danny. It's good to see you. It's really cool to have you on tonight, and I think everyone's getting an opportunity to see your grace and your finesse and just your whole presentation. I've tried to tell people, like, look, blah blah blah, but I think tonight was a good opportunity for people to see that. So thank you for being here, and Jody, thank you for inviting her. I've been working really hard for about 3 months not to take any aspirin at night because of the cell destruction. But man, I tell you, like the past 4 nights I've taken it, my sleep score has gone from 60 to 80. And I'm just like, I feel like that's worth it's worth the damage, because the sleep for me evades me. And I kind of wanted your feedback on that.
Well, what dose are you on?
That's a good question. It's probably 500 milligrams or something like that. Two 250s or something like that.
Try half of those, because what's happening when you're using aspirin, you're basically oxygenating better, and that's why you're sleeping better. That's it. You're just exchanging your gases a little bit better, and that's what's allowing you to get into the better sleep. You can still have the benefit of the aspirin without the cell destruction at about 81 to 150 milligrams. So try about half of it and see if it still improves your sleep and you notice the difference, but maybe not the side effects of it.
Thank you.
Hey, Denise, I've got a question. When you looked at someone's or all the blood work, I noticed Jody had some dates on his. How often are you suggesting that stuff be looked at again? Is it 6 months? Is it 3 months?
After initial visit, I like to check in about 3 months. And my measurement is simply based on the life of the red blood cell. I'm just expecting it to be about that long before you've made a full transition. You do feel better before then, but I like to recheck then because I'm expecting everything to be where I want it to be. And then depending on that value, I'll draw it out to 6 months, sometimes 9 months. I have patients that I see once a year now because they're great. Unless anything, and I tell them, if you're feeling great, everything is great, let me know when you need me. If I've corrected all the issues, then you're in a good place. We'll see you in 6 months or we'll see you in a year. But the funny thing is everyone finds so much value in seeing their labs. I usually get a phone call at about the 6 or 7 month mark anyway. Like, I just want to go ahead and check. Let me see where I am. And it's kind of rewarding to hit those marks and get all on the green checks and seeing that data and the validation there.
Okay, thank you.
Denise, by the way, a lot of these guys speak very highly of you. I almost want to relocate my family to Texas just so I can have access to you, because I know you're not operating in Louisiana, which is where I'm at.
Yeah,
But
close.
I'm here. I'll be the first to sign up when you do. I had a question about cortisol, and I've heard of valerian root being something that you can use to manage that. And in my job, it's a high stress environment, so it is something that I have to keep tabs on. I have used CBD recently, and I've noticed a big difference in stress that I hold in my body. Do you recommend that as far as controlling cortisol levels?
Absolutely. CBD is absolutely fantastic. I probably shouldn't say this. Are we still recording? I can't wait till some other things are legalized, because there is some, it's grown from the earth. It is some health benefits that go, anything in moderation, you can have the health benefits from it. The CBD is fantastic because there's not a side effect from it. I mean, it decreases your cortisol level. It actually helps to improve your metabolism. That specifically decreases, and this is what people don't know a lot of, on the vascular side of why people have heart attacks or why people have stress-induced heart attacks, is that vascular spasm. If you have plaques and those little pieces of plaque break off, and that's where you can have some issues. Well, it decreases those little vascular spasms, and it lowers your blood pressure. So I really haven't found anything wrong with it at all. Like, it's fantastic. The pharmacy makes a combo for me that has CBD, valerian root, has a little bit of melatonin in it, and it helps you sleep at night, the CBD sleep.
Jason, when she speaks of the pharmacy, so they also own a pharmacy called Revive, right? So beautiful compounded pharmacy, whatnot.
We're sisters, but I'm connected to the pharmacy, but not like.
Thank you.
If that it's clear as mud.
Yeah. And CBD should probably have THC in it, Jason.
No doubt.
Let's just be honest.
I might move to Colorado then.
The full benefit there.
What else, y'all? Cholesterol. She briefly spoke of cholesterol. Well, if someone's taking a statin, good luck with your testosterone levels, right? So you need to check, because that's the major substance from which all these hormones are derived from, and testosterone's down on that cascade. So if you're throwing a statin at that cholesterol, keep an eye on testosterone, because it might be low.
So I don't take a statin. I take Repatha, which is a cholesterol lowering pharmaceutical, because I'm allergic to statins. And so my cholesterol went from 300 down to like 135. I don't know my testosterone is. I've never measured it, but I can tell you that 275 on the bench press now feels like 315 felt like a year ago. And I don't know if it's just getting older, or if I'm just not working out as hard, or it's all the stupid running I do now, or I have no idea why I'm not as strong as I used to be. But my cholesterol, I'm not going to die at 50 at least, I guess, but.
Well, at 135, that's what I would call low. I actually like it in the 180s for men. You need it for your brain, you need it for cell repair, you need it for recovery, and you need it for testosterone. If you a statin will significantly impact the amount of testosterone you're producing and how you're using it. So my biggest question is, why would you need a statin?
I don't take a statin. So what I take for cholesterol is not a statin.
Sorry, let me rephrase it. Why would you need a cholesterol lowering medication?
Because 3 of my first cousins, my grandfather, my father, all died at like 50 years old of a heart attack. So I have genetic trash genes when it comes to cholesterol and heart disease.
Well, to be more specific, what's going on metabolically that would cause that? So is it insulin resistance? And if your liver enzymes are elevated, that's where I would take a deeper dive into insulin resistance and maybe even testosterone, because testosterone, insulin, and cholesterol are like a 3-legged stool. If each leg of the stool are balanced, everything is nice and supported. So when somebody tells me I have a high cholesterol or insulin resistance, why is it unbalanced? What has shifted? What's going on? Is it just diet? Is it stress? What is your cortisol level? What is your thyroid doing that can't completely regulate those functions? That there's a little more, I have a few more questions that would go to it before. And here's what I get excited about. When you go to the primary care doctor and they look at that number and they say, well, your cholesterol is here, here's a medicine. It's never an investigation as to why, what's causing it, what's going on internally that would lead to that number and a path to get off of it. They just signed you up for being on that medication with the fear of, if I don't take it, I'm going to have a heart attack. And that I want to empower you to know, hey, if I do this, this, and this, I can improve my metabolism and not need something like that. I can be in control of my health.
Yeah. So like at any weight, at any fitness, at any body fat percentage, on any diet, for the last 20 years, my cholesterol has been approaching 300. So like no matter what I do, no matter what I try, no matter what I eat, if I was a vegan, it doesn't matter. It's going to be 300, which is.
Have they ever checked your insulin level?
I don't know.
Corey, you should smile, man. You're about to get to root cause by working with Denise. That's the whole deal, right? You're getting a 5-minute assessment based on one marker, and here's a drug.
Yeah. I know it's like really hard to do on a Zoom call, but I mean.
Well, no. My point is, the reason I think you should smile is because you can absolutely get to root cause here, and that's what this is all about for optimal health. Because there's something going on with your AST, ALT as well, right? And you don't even know what your testosterone level is. And by all means, I mean, if you're getting weaker, and you should stop running. If you want to keep muscle, you should, but it just depends on what you enjoy doing. But you got to know your testosterone levels at some point, especially if you're getting weaker. And
I can't tell you, marathon training is bad for your strength. That much I did learn.
Of course. George, what's up, man? You got a question?
Yes. I've got one question.
I'm sorry. There's two Georges. So let's go George Liberman first, and then we'll go George's iPhone. Sorry about that. My fault. All right, George Liberman, what's up, man?
How are you doing?
Good, man. Did you have a question, buddy?
Yeah. So, Denise, can you do much for a sex hormone binding? I'm not remembering the exact term correctly, but is there much that you can do about that if that's the culprit? If your total testosterone is good and your free is a little low, the sex binding hormone, is there much that can be done about that?
So you're saying your SHBG is high?
Yeah, it would be high. Yeah.
So
I don't know what it is, but my total is okay. My free is a little bit lesser, but just when you were talking about the role that the sex hormone binding, whatever plays, is there much that can be done just about that aspect to improve things overall, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a complicated answer. So there's a few things that can affect it is your blood sugar, what your blood sugar is doing, how you're metabolizing your sugars. Thyroid function does have a role in that, not as much as the blood sugar on the metabolic side, and then cholesterol does too. So if your blood sugar is elevated and you're taking those extra sugars and turning them over to triglycerides, and you have this extra sugar that's flowing around, that can significantly increase your SHBG, which will cause your testosterone to be bound up and less available for use. So if it's too high, I immediately go to what's your blood sugar and insulin doing? What's your cholesterol? How are you metabolizing everything? And what's going on with your thyroid? If that's not my answer, I kind of trickle down on my list of causes.
Denise, if you were to throw a little bit of Proviron or Anavar at it, clearly we can lower that SHBG and free up a whole lot of free T. But is it bouncing back to normal at some point? Normal being too bound up and too high at some point, or is it staying down for a while?
That's it's person to person.
Okay.
I have some people that, I used it. I'll use the Anavar. Anavar is one of my favorite things. I love the effect of it, and it heals a lot of things. And occasionally it just doesn't respond, and I don't have an answer. And the joke in my world and my mentor, I'll go to him and I'm like, I can't fix this. And he says, well, this is a God particle. And I'm like, and he says, this is how the person was made and you can't fix everything. And I have to look at it and go, okay, well, what do I do next? And he says, well, just, give them what they need, increase their testosterone, or,
Yeah, that's another piece for you, George Liberman, is if you can't, I shouldn't say can't, but if SHBG is not, if it's elevated and you're trying to free up some pretest, a lot of times people will just push more total testosterone to get more to convert to free test.
That's where I have a lot of patients that will sit at their total testosterone will be 2100, but their free testosterone is only 186. I'm like, well, we made it to the threshold. How are you feeling? And that's usually when we get there. So
Yeah, that's right. All right. So the other George, how are you, man?
Doing good. Thank you again, Denise and Jody, for this very informational session here. So I've never been on testosterone. I'm very curious about it and leaning towards it because I've tried all kind of other things to just do this either naturally or, the regular doctors just kind of put you on a bunch of different pills. So what is the side effects or to watch out for, or any other things that, as somebody that's never taken tests, like to just give me the warning label?
as far as starting testosterone, or what can we do to help you produce more of your own?
Starting testosterone injections.
So when you start testosterone, you're getting exogenous testosterone, so it decreases your production. So what I pay attention to, and a few considerations are, if you've had children, what your levels are, things like that. If your levels are fine and you haven't had children yet, and I say fine as in you're still producing something, I'll encourage production. We can use HCG. I use clomiphene or enclomiphene, and let's re-stimulate your body. I'll still use Anavar too to help decrease body fat, increase muscle mass, which helps to increase your testosterone in the long run. I also give you the ingredients, the vitamin D, the DHEA, if you're missing that. But the biggest risks are, the decrease in production of your own testosterone and decreasing your fertility. Other than that, there's nothing but benefits. It improves your bone health, your muscular preservation, how much you preserve, visceral body fat, cardiovascular health, like all the things on that side. It's a very powerful anti-aging medication. So,
Denise, if you were to hop on exogenous testosterone, are you feeling pretty good that you can keep him fertile? Because I know I was able to have 3 boys while on testosterone, conceive 3 boys.
I keep the HCG running in the background, so
yeah,
and keep that stimulation happening.
Yeah. Can you still get the HCG? I know there's all that pharma mess going on, but you guys can still get it?
We can still get it. Yes.
Excellent.
I also have kisspeptin and enclomiphene as well. And they stimulate tell your brain to produce more testosterone.
Yeah, makes sense. George, did that help you, man?
Yes, it definitely helps point me in the right direction. So what is that type of test called?
It's HCG. HCG is human chorionic gonadotrophin, the pregnancy hormone.
That's what's going to keep you. That will keep you fertile if you get on testosterone.
That tells your testosterone to continue to produce.
Gotcha.
Yep. Mark, your hand's up.
Yes, I have so many questions, but I'll just leave it for one easy question. So I'm in Texas. So how can myself and my wife, reach out to you so that we can get started?
The easiest way is to go to the website, or the Ways to Well website, and then select Get Started.
Okay.
You guys have a special discount for new patients and what we're doing for Thumos patients. So you get a little perk there. So just make sure when you sign up for your appointment that you just say Jody or Thumos or anything to just remind me who you are, and you'll get a special perk there. And that includes your first set of blood work and the visit where we go through everything, and I'll meet with you online and show you all of your lab results, just like I did with Jody's and Tay. So you'll see all of yours, and then I formulate a treatment plan that works for you and what you need.
Okay. Awesome.
The waystowell.com is the easiest way.
Waystowell.com. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll also post it on the website, and these guys are an incredible bargain for what we get. It's unbelievable. Joseph, what's up, man?
Real quick and easy. Thanks so much, Denise. So my wife's super stressed, like 7 days a week with her job, and she's even gotten like adrenal fatigue, like puffiness under the eyes. So she does take ashwagandha, not as a good patient. She doesn't take it daily like she probably should. Is there anything else you would suggest to address that?
To address your stress, sleep, dedicating hours to sleep. So I would say if she can take the ashwagandha in the morning and at night, and you can take it twice a day. 5-HTP, it helps to get 5-HTP is tryptophan. It's like
we have that in the house. We have 5-HTP also.
Perfect. That combo, take it at night before you go to bed, but dedicate those 7-8 hours to sleep and the good deep sleep that helps to support cortisol. And unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time to heal the adrenals on that side. There could be a few other things that are missing that could perpetuate that, and that's where thyroid plays a role. If she's having a lot of taxation on the thyroid and the thyroid can't manage, I'm going to give you a visual. If she's stressed and the thyroid's trying to keep up, your adrenals will say, well, here's a little bit, get through it. So she'll have these little bursts of energy up and down, and she eventually gets used to it. And that's what the adrenal fatigue is. She's actually used to that adrenaline or that cortisol response. So we actually have to tone it way down, but give thyroid a little extra support so that the thyroid question is answered with more thyroid for energy instead of adrenaline. So there's a little more depth to that if that's what's going on with her. And I don't often find anyone that has real adrenal fatigue doesn't have a thyroid problem with it, meaning thyroid has been under so much pressure it's beginning to fail.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Vito.
Yeah, I got a question again on the thyroid. So how much can your TSH levels fluctuate, and how much should they fluctuate?
That completely varies on your thyroid need. So if I don't put a lot of weight in the TSH because I have found that TSH can be completely optimal and the T3 is just in the tank. The T4 is in the tank. But so that receptor that says I'm satisfied it's just not working. That's why I like to check the full function of the thyroid. So when I get a TSH, it doesn't give me enough information to tell me the full function of the thyroid. So to answer your question, the TSH varies throughout the day. In the morning, it's a little bit higher, trying to stimulate your need to get started throughout the day. And then in the evening, it kind of fades out.
Let's say the number was 4.5 and then it was down to 2.6 over 3 months. Does that sound like moving too much?
That's a lot. That's a big
That's what
yeah.
Okay.
Chris Simpson, is your hand up?
Yeah, Denise, quick question on HCG. How long do you see it taking before like fertility and sperm reproduction, all that kind of stuff comes back?
Usually about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
I've had a recent pregnancy and the couple, they were like, well, it was 3 weeks later and they were pregnant. So everything was fine. And his LH and FSH were very low before that, but
6 to 8 weeks at the end.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Okay, perfect. And then just administratively on the messaging on Ways to Well, I never know how to send that because I don't ever see your name in there. Is there a certain person that should go to, or I know it gets to you?
Well, at the administration, it still gets to me. Kelly filters out the ones that request blood work and like questions that she can answer, but everything else still comes to me. We had to turn it off coming directly to me because the portal that we use, it can't tell the difference if I'm actually in a visit or if I'm like working and doing notes. So the messages were just popping up in the middle of a visit and it was getting overwhelming. So
good deal. I just didn't know where to send it. So thank you.
You can also email me personally, the clinical@ways2well, that gets to me directly.
Okay.
So if you have questions, and I'm going to give you guys that clinical@ways2well. If you have any follow-up questions, you feel free to send them over. I'll do my best to answer with the information you give me. And just give me about a day because it's just me right now. I lost my partner today because she's having a baby. So had a baby today. So
Thanks for being here tonight.
no problem. Thank you guys for having me. I've really enjoyed this. I was so nervous all day, like.
This is awesome. This is just awesome. It's what you do. It's who you are. You're helping. You're optimizing people and changing lives. So thanks for that. Are you ready for Louisiana folks to come your way, or do you want more time on that?
The only thing I am waiting on is the Louisiana Board of Nursing to sign off on the forms. So everything was submitted, and I'm at the mercy of Louisiana's Board of Nursing. So we have a medical director there. We have everything. It's just waiting for them to sign that.
So would this make sense? You reach out to me, or we'll be talking, and then I'll let these men in Louisiana know when we're good to go.
Yes. The workaround we have is that if you get blood work from somewhere else, send it to me. I will still interpret it, and I will still do everything else for you. Sometimes I can get primary care doctors to order it, or you can do a walk-in lab there, and I'll give you a list of what we need to order. And I do that a lot.
Okay, so that's key, guys. So you can go through your insurance, right, and get the labs done. Good luck arguing with your knucklehead doctor, right, or why you need SHBG or free T. They don't even know what those are. But if you can get that, it's paid for under insurance. If you can't, we can't use our buddies in Discounted Labs because of our precious state is so corrupt. He doesn't yet have a medical license to practice in Louisiana, or he doesn't have a doctor overseeing it. But we can put you on private MD labs in order to get some online labs. You can click and and get what you want, and then send that over to Ways to Well. So if they were to do that, Denise, you can't ship a prescription to them. If they have long-term, right, like Caremark, CVS that I had, you can call that in, right?
I can call that in.
If they don't, can you get to Louisiana? Can you get that to them? Probably not yet.
I think the same time mine gets approved, the pharmacies, I don't know where the pharmacy stands. That's the hard part is.
Okay.
I'd have to get back to you on that part.
Yeah. So the bottom line is it could be full service once you get the go ahead from Louisiana, the state board. In the meantime, you can do labs and review their labs and have that conversation. Because a lot of these guys can, if they want, not everyone should take testosterone, right? But for those who want it, I think there's value in you looking over their labs because you can make some tweaks.
Sometimes it's, hey, you're not making digestive enzymes, or hey, you're not sleeping, you need magnesium. Sometimes it's really simple, straightforward, and everything else is fine. This is what you can do better. So sometimes it's just, what can I do better? Where are my marks? Where are my grades? How can I make myself healthier? What can I be in control of? So just knowing where you stand, it answers a lot of questions too.
Yeah. And I like you saying, knowing where you stand. I think that's for our wives as well. Even if our wives, even if ourselves, even if we're feeling fantastic and we're not on anything, go get blood work. If you're 25, if you have kids that are 25, no one here's 25, or even 20, go get blood work. I used to say, why would you want to do that? It's too early. No, because if you feel great, you want a baseline. Wouldn't it be great if you're 50 years of age to know where you were at 30 or 25 or whatnot? So if your wives feel great, go get blood work, because in 5 years, if she doesn't feel great, you want to know what's changed.
Agreed.
Anything else? Did we forget to ask you? There's a million things, Denise, but anything else you want to tell us?
I think, Chris, did you have another question?
No, I'm sorry. I put my hand down.
Okay. Just making sure. No, I talked to, I just confirmed everything. We have a special for you guys that includes your labs and the visit, and that is $249, and it's normally $500. So it's about half price for you guys if for Thumos, Jody referrals. Just make sure you say that when that's how we code it. And I don't do any of the billing stuff, so I have to see it in order to communicate it. So
that's way I can't even get labs done through my affiliates. They're anywhere from $300 to $260, and you just said $249. And so that means that your time is unpaid. It's free. That's thank you. That's almost too generous, but thank you.
I've got a question. Does that does that discount extend to existing patients or just new patients?
You know, I didn't ask, and I don't know. I don't do any of the admin side of it, so I will.
Well, when you ask, tell them it's Brooke who sent like 15 people over.
I can't imagine that it wouldn't be well received for all the referrals you've sent over.
Yeah, Brooke has sent you a lot of people, but let's keep him like, but Brooke and I aren't doing. Yeah, I guess we are doing some full. Like when we go back, is it just as comprehensive?
Well, when we do follow-up visits, that's booked for a 30-minute visit, and
Yeah, but are the labs just as comprehensive to where it would be that same?
yeah, it's the same.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the same panel minus, I think forget, this all changed just a few days ago.
Yeah, okay.
But frazzled with all they changed all the orders because all the prices went up. So I had to take out, in order to keep that price, I took out the cortisol and a couple other of the expensive tests. So if you want to do the full thing with all the cortisol and all of it, I know that there's a special price. Tay couldn't give it to me because it was based on what the cost of the lab work was. And
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Is D3 in your comprehensive panel? For most labs, it's extra. It's another $66-70. So
the complete panel, which is the all 16 blood tests that has the vitamin D in it.
Wow, that's great.
The mid-range panel does not have, it does have the vitamin D. So even the mid-range panel has the vitamin D, but the smaller package, what we call the bronze package, has the CBC, metabolic panel, testosterone, PSA, lipid panel, and insulin. And then the mid-range package has all of that plus the vitamin D, free T3, TSH, and the DHEA. And
Okay.
then
All right.
the
Love
complete
it.
panel has all of that, plus iron, A1C, magnesium, B12 folate, estradiol, cortisol.
Okay. Guys, if you do nothing else, and you should, but if you do nothing else, D3 with K2 and fish oil, you're taking fish oil anyway. It's fat soluble. D3, you're not getting enough sunshine. Full body, for 30 minutes produces 50,000 IUs if you're white skinned, full body, but who's doing that? Who's getting that? Right. So I take 10,000. I'm backing off now because I'm in the sun every day with my shirt off with my boys. I'll back it down to 5,000. I'll probably come in somewhere around, 75 or 80 on my blood labs. And that's freaking optimal. That's COVID protection. That's a whole lot of protection and immunity. So D3 for your wives, for your kids, don't just guess, get that blood test done. It's part of this panel. But otherwise, if you go get it somewhere else, even Austin or Kelsey-Seybold, I'm guessing it's between $60 and $70 based on the labs that I've done. It's a no-brainer for everybody. Denise, this has been fantastic. I love that they've been able to see your sort of your magic. I'll tell you what, you have 5 more minutes. We'll do a checkout and you can stick with us if you're okay with that.
I'm going to go tuck my kids in.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. We're all grateful. This has been fantastic. And I know that there'll be guys knocking on your door for this and their wives.
Yes. Well, if you have questions, you can, like I said, my personal email is theclinical@ways2well. Feel free to email me. Just, tell me who you are and how we met, and we'll get you connected. And
thank you.
I appreciate you letting me share this time with you. And I look forward to seeing all of you guys.
Oh, this is
Thank you,
fantastic.
Denise.
Thank you.
Thank you.